Hey everybody, Scott Livingston from ReconditioningHQ.com. Just up here in Mont Tremblant, finishing a hike up at the top of the chairlift, and thought I'd talk a little bit today about some of the stuff I've been posting about this past week on capacity versus capability. And I think sometimes when you read a post, it's hard sometimes to necessarily understand the nuances of what is meant, and sometimes that can be taken offensively if you land in sort of different sectors of the boat. And I know as a strength and conditioning practitioner or performance professional, which I have been all of my career, as well as an athletic therapist, I carry those two worlds, and I believe deeply and love both deeply. And my whole vision, along with my wife Jamie Livingston, is to try to bridge the gap between those two worlds. And a lot of what we're posting right now and a lot of the things we're doing is really built around trying to bridge that gap. And when it comes to the concept of capability versus capacity, what's important to understand is that it's a continuum. I'm really not saying that you have to only have how you do things set up all through the body before you ever start to build capacity. If we did that, we'd never be able to build performance athletes. But the key is to understand the types of movements you're doing and what the real setup is, and to know that the quality of that movement is sound. And there are a lot of different aspects to every movement that we do, and some of those elements of movement are really just general neurological perturbations, the body trying to figure out the pathway, etc. And that's okay. What we don't want to have is don't want to have these constant sort of dysfunctional pathways set up that are actually going to cause in the long term tissue damage or tissue overstress. A simple example of that would be if I'm doing a split squat and my pelvis is always dumped forward anteriorly and shifted to the backside leg. What we're creating is a bit of a torque through that SI joint, L spine, and we're also tending to see that the hip of the forward side leg is potentially sometimes shifted in, which might be causing medial knee drive down into the ankle and foot. That's an example of a poor pathway or poor position of setup. And if we load that and we try to build capacity in that, of course the tissues that are producing the force are going to grow and they're going to become stronger, but the damage we're going to potentially be causing through different elements of that movement pathway, whether it's at the ankle joint, whether it's at the knee joint, whether it's at that hip pelvis or SI or lumbar spine, or further up the chain. Ultimately, what we need to be doing is setting that up properly. So, does that mean you can't work on capacity at all? Well, no. You can go to a double leg position and do something like a squat or a deadlift or a trap bar deadlift, or even get back into an old school leg press where if your pelvis is set up properly and you've established the right position, while you're working on getting that person to be able to establish the right positioning in a split stance, you could be working on the capacity of that tissue and building strength, building endurance, building whatever property of capacity you want to build while you're working on those other things, so that the setup becomes cleaner. So it's really about making sure that our setup, that our movement pathway, and that the reproduction of that pathway over time in various movements is really sticking. And if it's not, then we want to figure out why, and we want to figure out how we're going to change that. Lastly, when it comes to the capability side of things, there's a lot of things that could be limiting capability. We can have hardware issues, we can have software issues. And next week I'm going to get into talking about what the difference between hardware and software issues are, so that we can start to decipher and play through how we might change those things. So if you like the stuff that Jamie and I are posting, we're going to be doing this from here on in regularly, both here on our own personal pages and on Reconditioning HQ. Eventually we'll probably start doing some live stuff so we can really get some interaction with you guys and answer some questions. And ultimately we want to really help the community grow and get people talking both languages. That's what we're all about. So thanks for joining me, and if you like this, please share it with the community at large, and I will be back. Thank you.